In this podcast episode, host Jonathan Cohen and guest Dr. Julia Mossbridge, a cognitive neuroscientist and expert on exceptional human performance, delve into a range of fascinating topics, including neurodiversity, psychic abilities such as precognition and remote viewing, government-related childhood experiments, and how radiation exposure might influence human consciousness. The conversation weaves personal anecdotes with scientific insights and practical exercises, exploring the nature of consciousness, intuition, and the integration of analytic and intuitive mindsets. The discussion begins with a profound question: how can one change things in the universe using conscious thought? Dr. Mossbridge explains that the conscious mind is a small, approximately 3% part of what the brain processes. The vast majority is unconscious. This unconscious processing manages everything from bodily functions to environmental cues, including information that may originate from non-local sources or outside space-time constraints. She introduces the concept of an informational-only dimension, a space where information exists independently of matter and energy and may underlie the universe itself, intersecting with space-time but governed by different rules. Conscious intention interacts with this substrate but is limited, akin to watching a movie where the conscious mind struggles to rewrite the script of unfolding events. The hosts and Dr. Mossbridge explore neurodiversity, challenging the notion of a single neurotypical brain, emphasizing the vast inter-individual differences in cognitive processing. They discuss how society's definitions evolve as more people seek to understand their unique cognitive profiles. Neurodivergence, often associated with autism and ADHD, is not a categorical label, but part of a spectrum of human cognitive styles, each with distinct strengths and challenges. The episode highlights the complexity of filtering sensory and cognitive information. Some individuals may experience overwhelming sensory input due to less filtering, while others may have excessive filtering that limits awareness. An important point is made about the tension between labeling for support and the risk of overgeneralizing, encouraging a strengths-based view where individual gifts, including slow processing or hypervigilance, contribute valuably to society. Dr. Mossbridge and the hosts emphasize the transformational power of unconditional love and forgiveness as essential tools for psychological and spiritual growth. Unconditional love is defined precisely as loving without requiring any change or conditions in others, distinct from unconditional acceptance of all behavior. This kind of love frees individuals from the prison of judgment and conditional acceptance, opening space for authentic connection and self-compassion. The episode stresses that this love originates from something greater, whether called God, universal love, or another name, and that cultivating this relationship helps individuals process trauma, improve relationships, and access deeper intuition. The conversation turns to what Dr. Mossbridge calls the hidden part of the mind, a reservoir of unconscious intuitive knowledge that interacts with the analytical conscious mind. This hidden part is not confined to the right hemisphere, but transcends localized brain regions, tapping into a broader field of universal information. The podcast includes a practical exercise illustrating how to integrate analytical, left hemisphere, and intuitive, right hemisphere, thinking. This exercise involves toggling between structured word-based analysis and open-ended image and feeling-based reception, encouraging listeners to cultivate balance and gain access to non-local information. This blending of analytic precision with intuitive openness, they suggest, is foundational to psychic phenomena such as remote viewing. Dr. Mossbridge clarifies that remote viewing is distinct from ordinary thinking, but can enhance it. Remote viewing involves accessing non-local information, insights not derived from sensory input or memory, by intentionally blending analytical and intuitive mind states. It is a disciplined practice that honors both hemispheric specializations. Unlike everyday thinking, which stays anchored in past patterns and current evidence, remote viewing is positioned to detect potentially unpredicted, emergent future events, known as black swans. Usually deployed for intelligence or defense purposes, remote viewers aim to access information that complements or challenges analytical predictions, looking beyond what is statistically probable. Dr. Mossbridge shares deeply personal recollections of her childhood involvement in a government-related gifted and talented program during the early 1980s that included unusual practices such as repeated auditory tests, disguised as hearing tests, using high-pitched sounds. She recalls being singled out in a way that felt invasive and mysterious, including weekly meetings with a counselor whose sessions she does not remember, suggesting possible amnesia or suppression. A pink drink with a chalky texture was administered, the nature and purpose of which remain unclear. Possibilities discussed include amnesic drugs, radiation protection, or substances influencing psychic capacities. The context points to secretive studies potentially linked to the effects of radiation exposure from nuclear testing and emerging technologies aimed at exploring cognitive and psychic impacts. Documents and redacted school records underpin suspicions of government monitoring. The conversation shifts to the larger question of whether increasing exposure to ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, such as from nuclear fallout, cell phones, and electromagnetic fields, could be influencing humanity's psychic potential. Dr. Mossbridge, while not claiming definitive answers, explores the hypothesis that radiation might alter brain function and open access to psychic phenomena, noting government interest in studying radiation's effects on cognitive capacities. The episode discusses radiation sources, from natural background and medical exposures to new-age electromagnetic fields, and acknowledges the complexity of tipping points where exposure might trigger such effects. It also touches on the darker side of electromagnetic technology, referencing directed energy weapons and electronic warfare used to affect individuals selectively. Throughout the episode, Dr. Mossbridge maintains a nuanced view of intelligence agencies like the CIA and defense contractors, distancing actual covert operations from popular conspiracy theories. She acknowledges the ethical dilemmas and secretiveness inherent in government research, but highlights conscientious individuals within these agencies who aim for protective and ethical outcomes. Importantly, she warns against charlatans fraudulently claiming government affiliations to exploit vulnerable populations, especially families of neurodivergent or non-speaking autistic individuals. Dr. Mossbridge recounts her earliest memories of precognition around age 7, including specific dreams foretelling events, such as a friend losing a watch on the playground the very next day. She describes the ongoing interplay between her scientific training, which emphasized analytic rigor, and her intuitive experiences, which were often marginalized by formal education. She eventually found collaborators and postdoctoral environments that allowed integration of her psychic research with cognitive neuroscience. Her work reveals a dynamic where psychic abilities ebb and flow relative to how dominant the analytical mind is at any given time. The episode highlights Dr. Mossbridge's research within the Telepathy Tapes project, focusing on spontaneous telepathic communication in non-speaking autistic people. Using enriched stimulus sets and naturalistic interactions, her team documents instances where non-speakers convey detailed, novel information, such as recognizing environmental details from videos or naming persons and objects unknown to those facilitating communication via spelling or letterboards. These findings challenge conventional assumptions about nonverbal individuals' cognitive and communicative potential. The research also involves developing curricula that integrate telepathic skills into education for non-speaking autistic students, aiming to unlock communication and foster connection. The conversation revisits the nature of time and precognition, encouraging listeners to cultivate a different relationship with time, viewing it not as a linear enemy, but as an ally that reveals more over time. Dr. Mossbridge discusses the importance of sitting with the unknown without fear, acknowledging that intuition requires openness to uncertainty and the willingness to move beyond habitual patterns of seeking immediate answers. She advocates that a foundation of unconditional love and connection with a higher source or universal consciousness provides the safety needed to develop intuitive and psychic faculties. Toward the episode's end, Dr. Mossbridge touches on her ongoing efforts to publish research, create holistic curricula, and establish new organizations such as MindRise, intended to revolutionize the funding and approach to human potential research and related technologies. The work aims to bridge the gap between scientific investigation and the lived experiences of those with exceptional cognitive abilities, expanding understanding and ethical integration across society. Through storytelling, experiments, and education, she hopes to nurture awareness of our interconnected consciousness and empower people to harness intuition and love as transformative forces in both personal and collective realms.